Welcome to the Flex Your Rights podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanrahan. This is the podcast for informing employees of their rights in California. So if you want to know your rights so that you can flex them at work, this is your show. Let's get flexing. Hey, welcome back to the Flex Your Rights podcast. You've got me, attorney Corey Hanrahan. We've got Travis Triggs, and we've been gone for a while, Travis. We haven't recorded in a while, but it's good to be back. Good to be back in the booth. And we've got something special today that we cooked up for you. So, a lot of what we've been doing in previous videos are talking about your rights as an employee so that you can flex your rights. And so a lot of people don't know this. So in addition to being an employment attorney, I'm an employment mediator as well. So I offer mediation services. So Travis and I were talking about that. And Travis is like, look, explain mediation to me. And he goes, let's do a video on it, right? If Travis has questions about mediation, other people probably have questions about mediation. And I get a lot of questions about mediation, people wondering what it's about, how's it different than going to court, and a ton of questions. So Travis and I got together and we go, look, let's dive into it. Travis hit me with every question that he can think of about mediation, and let's do it. Let's educate everybody, because I feel like this is one of the things you've got to know that you can flex it too, because it's somewhat a part of enforcing your rights in litigation, but it's a little bit different than litigation. So let's dive into it. Travis, what do you think?
Oh, we should definitely dive into this, because I didn't know what mediation was before you told me about it. So, and I know I'm not the only person that thinks that. I think this is going to be a great conversation. If you're listening, stay tuned and stay listening, because you're going to get some really good information that you may be able to pass on to somebody that's going through some problems at work.
Yeah, let's hit it. All right, Travis, go for it, man. What do you got?
Got the question. So the very first question of questions is this: what is mediation?
Oh, good question. So, I think the textbook definition of mediation is a facilitated negotiation between two parties using independent, disinterested third party and trying to get the case resolved, right? And that person is the mediator. So really what it is, it's a negotiation between, let's take the employment context, a negotiation between an employee who has a claim and an employer who the claim is made against. And you have the mediator just trying to help them negotiate and come to a settlement, right? Come to a resolution. And so the mediator is just going back and forth. Think about buying a car. Think about a car dealership, right? You've got the customer who could be the employee in this situation. And then you've got the employer who's maybe the manager who makes the final decision on the price of the car. And then you've got the salesperson, who I kind of look at as like the mediator in a way, right? The employer goes, the employee, the customer goes, look, we'll give you, 50 grand for it. And that mediator, the salesperson goes, I don't know. Let me go check with the manager, right? Let me see what I can do for you. And goes to the manager, comes back and goes, I got him to come down to 52.5, but that's about all we can do. That's what he's telling me. And you come back and go, well, how about you throw this in or that in, or, and that's really it, right? That mediator is the person who's in both rooms, who's going back and forth, who's sort of exchanging the information and trying to get the parties to be able to resolve their dispute, so that it either doesn't go into litigation or doesn't have to go further into litigation.
Okay.
That was a long answer, Travis.
That was perfect. The reason why it's perfect, because it's like, okay, I'm a regular person. That was you would use mediation to not go to court, is what you're saying? Like that, is that, since you're the middle person, like you're the salesperson who's between the customer and the sales manager? I love how you broke it down like that too, because I'm from the car. I was previously in the car industry, so this relates to me personally even better. And that wasn't intentional, which I love. So like you would be the mediator is the person that's stopping the customer or whoever from going to court. Court would be the sales manager. Is that right?
Well, not really. So in that example, the sales manager was like the employer, right? The
Okay.
defendant. So, the salesperson, the mediator is sort of the liaison between the two to try to get a deal done, right?
I
So
see.
it doesn't really have anything to do with, court or no court, because mediations can happen at any time. You could mediate a case before it's filed, right? By saying, look, let's try to get this resolved before both sides spend a bunch of money on costs, on attorney's fees, trying to litigate it. Let's just see if we can resolve it early. Um, a lot of cases are mediated during the litigation process. So the lawsuit's been filed, some discovery's done, maybe depositions have been taken, and then the parties go, let's go see if we can resolve the case. Right now that we have the facts on the table, we know what it's about. Let's hire a mediator and see if they can get the case done. You could even mediate after trial. So let's say you go to trial, you win a bunch of money. The defense says we're going to appeal. We think the judge made some errors, or whatever. They can say let's try to get it resolved now before we appeal it. So technically, you can mediate at any point in time. Generally the earlier the better, because it's before you've spent a bunch of money on like costs and attorney's fees and stuff. So, it can be more beneficial to do it earlier, but sometimes, the cases just aren't ready to settle until those facts are sort of out, and you mediate it after there's been some discovery done in litigation.
Okay. Now you did say the words costs. Is this something that people do to save money? Like you can save going with the mediator when the lawsuits. So a person wants to sue someone, they've said, I'm going to sue you. They've started the paperwork, the process. You can kind of help, like lower the fees for someone or lower the cost for someone if they're in the midst of suing like their job, their employer.
Absolutely. Well, so on the employee side, the employee side, generally you're hiring your lawyer on a contingency basis. So that means a percentage, right? So the lawyer gets a percentage of whatever it is that you win. There's no hourly charge. But for the employee, a mediation can help keep the cost down, because by time you get depositions taken, by time you have expert witnesses, you could be looking at, 15, 20, 25, 30, possibly $50,000 in costs in your case, which comes out of your share, not the attorney share. So the attorney would get their percentage for their fees, and then those costs come off the top. From the employer side, employers are paying their attorneys hourly. So by mediating the case and trying to resolve it early, you can save a significant amount of money on the attorney's fees that you're paying as the employer to defend the case.
Okay.
Because, even a steeply discounted rate of like 350, 450 an hour in the course of litigation, that adds up. That adds up very quick. So it's sort of, it's more economical for all the parties to try to get the case resolved through mediation.
Okay. So all the parties, both sides. So both sides win by going through mediation. It
It is.
sounds
It's a
like.
win-win. It's
Okay.
it's a win-win. I mean, look, the employer is still going to have to pay money, you know what
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to get the case resolved. But a lot of times, the amount of money that they would have to pay could be less than what they would just pay their lawyers to defend the case. So, I mean, in that situation, I look at it as sort of a win for them, right? It's costing them less money than it would cost to defend the case. And if you defend it and you get hit at trial, you could be out significantly more money. So it really is a win-win situation where the parties can come together, talk about the differences that they have, talk about the dispute, and get it resolved without putting it in the hands of a jury after, 2 years of contentious litigation.
Wow. Okay. Now, from your experience, how much time do you think it saves? Like time specific? Could it stop could that potentially stop a court case? Like you can figure out the mediation. You help figure out with the employee and the employer. You're the person helping them come to an agreement without having to extend the case or to extend the problem.
Oh,
Is that
absolutely.
right?
Mediations can take, some take half a day.
Oh,
Most take a day when it comes to employment cases like this, right? So, I mean, a mediation could be a 9 to 5. where you fired up at 9 o'clock. Hopefully you've got a deal done by 5, and that resolves the case. It's a one day process instead of 2 years of litigation if it
Whoa.
goes to
Okay.
court. Now look, I'm a huge proponent of mediation. Some cases need to go to court,
Okay.
right? Because if you mediate a case and the parties just aren't ready yet to get it resolved, they're just not ready. More work needs to be done. But eventually, all the cases get there. I think the percentage is still about the same. 95% of cases settle.
Oh wow.
So, I
Okay.
mean, if you're looking at that, the odds are your case is going to resolve without going to trial. So if you can do it earlier before the employer spent, $250,000 defending it, before the employee spent, 20 grand in depositions and expert costs, why not do that early? I mean, that's all more money that either stays in the employer's pocket or goes into the employee's pocket.
Okay. Okay. So let's say a person wants to sue their employer. They have to go through that process. They have to start the process first before they speak with a mediator like yourself, or can they just call you directly and start asking you questions before they even file? Or do they have to file first and then they talk to you? How does that
So
work?
that's so that's a good question. So mediation isn't having me as the mediator as a resource to ask questions of, right? A mediator is somebody where both sides would say, so we've got the employer and the employee. They say, look, we want to try to resolve this, right? Let's engage a mediator. Let's engage Corey Hanrahan to try to get the case resolved. One of the sides reaches out to me and says, what's your availability? You know what I mean? And, when do you have time to do it? We find a time that works, a day that works for everybody, and we set it up. And then we dive into the mediation session, which is, going back and forth, me talking to both sides, getting information, helping exchange that information. But it's not one side calling up and saying, hey, here's my dispute. What do you think I should do? What do you think of these claims? It's not reaching out like that. It's setting up a formal mediation where all the parties are present. And we can do it on Zoom now, which is the best. I mean, the parties are in the comforts of their own home. They don't have to travel long distances anymore. If somebody from LA wants to mediate with me, they don't have to drive down in the morning and find parking and get there. They work well via Zoom, doing them virtual. So, um, but it's a session, right? So everybody's getting together and we're trying to get it resolved. It's not just one side reaching out asking questions.
Okay. So, and since it's not one side, so who would be the person that would reach out to you? Who would be that person? Would it be the lawyer? Is there already a lawyer involved
So
already?
there doesn't have to be. There doesn't
Okay.
have to be a lawyer involved. I mean, technically parties could mediate their issues themselves.
Okay.
If an employee comes to an employer and says, I'm having this issue, I'm going to sue you guys, they're welcome to say, do you want to try to mediate it with somebody? Generally, it happens with a lawyer. So normally it's the lawyers reaching out to me saying, hey, we've got this case, so and so's on the other side. We want to set up a mediation. What's your availability? So it's
Okay.
generally but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. I mean, an employee wouldn't really reach out though and say, you know, I want to mediate. What's your availability? Unless they've reached out to the employer and the employer's on board with it, right? Both parties have to agree to mediate. It's not a one person thing. So both
Okay.
sides have to agree to the process, and then they both have to agree to the mediator.
Okay. So I do gotta ask, because this is probably one a really good question for people to know. What makes you different from the other mediators?
That's a good
I
question.
know
I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, it. I like to think it's a couple things, right?
Mhm.
So the first one is my experience in employment law. There's a lot of mediators that you look at their bios, their websites, and it says they do business disputes, contract disputes, personal injury, employment, civil rights, and there's this long list of things they do. I do employment. I mean that's my focus. That's what I've been litigating since 2008, And so that's really where I sort of flourish. My knowledge of the law, my knowledge of the nuances of the law, that's my thing, right? So I bring that knowledge to the mediation where you're not spending, as one of the parties, you're not spending 2 or 3 hours trying to educate me on what employment law is. I know what it is. You know what I mean? I know what it is. We can skip that and we can get right into the facts of the case and be more efficient. So that's one thing I think that differentiates me. The second one I think is, I want to say my personality. I do a pretty good job of connecting with the employers and connecting with the employees, right? On both sides, because I've litigated these cases. This is just me. You know what I mean? My personality isn't the adversarial a-hole. You know what I mean? Who's just going to be yelling at somebody. I've sort of always been, I'm a middle child. I'm a middle child, so maybe
Yeah, me
this is
too.
it. But I feel like I've always been the peacemaker. You know what I mean? Like let's figure out what the differences are and let's just resolve it and move past it. You know what I mean? It's therapeutically, it's sort of like it's like healing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
living with those problems and the dispute and the disagreements is just, like letting someone live inside of your head rent free. You know what I mean? Like there's
yeah,
just no need to do it. So if you can resolve it, my goal is to try to get the matter resolved because if it's in the best interest of both parties, but to also let them move on, right? There's the monetary amount involved with what the employee gets and maybe how much the employer saves by, skipping costly litigation and trial. But there's also like the emotional value of that. And like I see that emotional value, like let's get this resolved so you can move on. You know what I mean? Like, so you don't have to be like living in the past with this disagreement where everything is shitty, right? Let's just say
yes,
shitty. That's the only swear word I'm dropping
yeah.
this episode.
Dropping
Everything
bombs.
is shitty. Yes, move past it, right? And like look for those brighter, happier days. And I feel like that's what I try to bring to the table is letting people realize like life after this dispute is so much better than life in the dispute.
Yes. Oh
You
man,
know?
you make me want to work with you right now. I wish I was there. I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
that's
But
awesome.
it's true, right? There's always a focus on the money and the money's going to be the money. But, you have to see, what else you can accomplish by getting it resolved. So again, I think I do a really good job of building a rapport with people. You know what I mean? I'm not an intimidating retired judge where, people are going to, be a little scared to talk. I can usually get people like, communicating pretty well.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
that's what helps get things resolved. You know what I mean? Get the thing resolved and move on.
See, and I think one of the biggest things that rings my ears because you are an employment attorney and you do have your mediation, and by you saying like working with you is more efficient because you know all the laws already versus someone working with a mediator that doesn't know the employment laws in California specific. And just so I can just tie it down even more, you serve mainly California. Is that like your focus
Well, so
or
in my practice, right? My
okay?
employment law practice, yes, it's only California because I'm only licensed in California. And then as a mediator, just because of my knowledge of California, it is sort of California exclusive. But it's all up and down California. If your lawyer's up in Northern California or LA, we can do a virtual Zoom mediation. It's easy to get on and to have that mediation and convene the session without having to be present physically in San Diego. So, up and down California, if you've got a case that you need mediated, that you're looking for, an employment law mediator, I love it. I love it. I really, really believe in mediation, the power of it, getting stuff resolved. Um, and again, I've been in mediations where the mediators come back and they said, the other side saying this, that, this, and I'm like, dude, they're full of it. Like that's not the law. That's not the defense. And they're like, well, I don't really know if they are. And I'm not. I'm not afraid as a mediator to go, that's not right. You know what I mean? Like, I know the
Yeah.
law. Maybe take a look at this and let me know what you think. But the exchange of information gets things settled, and also knowing sort of what the parameters are, right? What the law provides for, what it doesn't, that helps too. And so with me knowing that stuff, if you say something doesn't quite comport with my understanding of the law, I'm going to bring it up. You know what I
Uh,
mean? I'm there to get the deal done. And I don't do anybody any service by letting them go forward litigating their case with a misunderstanding of the law. Because eventually it's going to catch up to them with the judge or the jury, and they're going to lose. And so I feel like it's, people have hired me to try to get things resolved. If I think you've got it wrong, I'll let you know. You can look it up and make that determination yourself. But I'm not afraid to say, I don't think that's quite right. I
that's
don't
awesome.
think that's quite right.
Okay. Now, is there cases where a person cannot like their mediator? Is there cases where people's like, you know what? This person isn't working for us, or is it we've already made this person the decision? We've already chosen to work with him. We can't get out of this. We have to work with this person.
Well, maybe for other mediators. No,
I love it.
no, all jokes aside. No, so I mean, once you're in the mediation, you're in the mediation.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, you could just say, look, I don't like this person. I
Yeah.
don't want to keep using them. And you don't have to. You can end the
Okay.
mediation at any point, right? And I should have brought this up at the beginning. This is a great point. The mediators, Travis, as a mediator, I have zero power in the mediation.
Okay.
So I can't say, look, the case, the case settles for this much money. I can't say the employee gets this much money, right? I
Okay.
have zero power. I am really just that person bringing a message back and forth to the parties, trying to get them to an amount of money that will resolve the case. But I don't have the power. So, even if somebody didn't like me, there's really no harm I can do as the mediator. Um,
Okay.
I because I can't say, look, you're getting 10 grand. That's it. Be thankful for that and, leave. There's no power there at all. I really, the mediator is only that person that's helped trying to facilitate the resolution.
Okay.
The facilitator, no power to award anybody money, to make anybody pay money. It's just using those skills that I have in dispute resolution to try to get the parties to realize that they're going to be able to get a good deal if they get the case resolved for X number of dollars.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. And then it sounds like, that right there, getting to the numbers, but working with the right person could be could save you a ton of money by working with the right person because you can speed up the conversation. Having the right educated person in the field would make your life easier, the employer's life easier, the lawyer's lives easier. So I don't just mean to. If anyone's listening to this, I'm not trying to tell you to work with Corey, but you should just work with Corey. Just hit him up. He's a mediator. He can't do that, but I can.
There you go, Travis. No, but it's true. I mean, even if it's not with me, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
of
It's
course.
like mediation is, I think, I'd rather have it be with me, but mediation is a really positive experience. As an attorney representing clients, I've never had a client go, well, that sucked. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes, you go to mediation, you don't get the case resolved. You learn stuff though about the case. Maybe it, helps set the stage for a resolution shortly thereafter or a little bit further down the road. But I've never attended a mediation that wasn't helpful in at least some regard.
Okay.
You know what I
Now,
mean? So
okay.
it's a good thing. It may not resolve that day, but as a mediator, I don't give up either.
Oh,
So,
that's
like, if
awesome.
there's a crack that I can see that's going to help be able to get the case resolved, but we don't get it resolved that day, I'll be like, stay tuned. To be continued. And I'll let the lawyers know, like, let me make some phone calls. I'm going to follow up with you. Here's what I want you guys to talk about. And I will not stop trying to get that matter resolved until we get it resolved.
Oh wow. Okay, this is perfect. Now, I.
Travis, Corey don't quit.
Oh yeah, Corey, don't quit,
Corey don't
baby.
quit.
But with this episode, you know me, man. I don't like the episodes being too long because I know people listening. You got things to do. You're probably on the road right now. So I want to make the next episode. If you're listening, if you want to tune into the next episode, I wanted the next episode to go over like examples of what a mediation looks like the real process of like you're in it. This is what's going on. This is what I need from you. This is what, so you understand what's going on. So if you guys are listening, make sure you tap into the next episode because we're definitely going to go into more detail. I think I've asked you enough. I got a good understanding personally what a mediator is just off of this conversation. So I hope the people that are listening do as well. If you do not understand something, please leave a comment. Reach out to Corey. I would say reach out to me, but I wouldn't be able to help you out. I'll just send you over to Corey. So reach out to Corey. Corey, how can people reach out to you? How can people find you if they're like going through it right now and they're listening to this? Like, I need to give Corey a call right now. How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me, hanrahanfirm.com. I've got my mediation website, hanrahanmediation.com. So both of those will let you find me. Phone number 619-377-6522. You can email me at Corey@hanrahanfirm.com. You can email me at Corey@hanrahanmediation.com. Google me. I mean, I pop up. There's a lot of easy ways to find me. You can send me a message through the website. Always happy to talk with you. And yeah, Travis, let's do that. Next episode is going to be sort of, explaining the process of mediation, because I think that's important for people to know. So I like that idea, man.
Oh, this is perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. My questions are done for this episode. Corey, close it out. You're the best.
Hey, appreciate you guys. It's good to be back. We went a little long, Travis, but you're right. Once we start talking, it's hard to stop. Flex Your Rights podcast. Stay tuned. Listen to the next episode where we'll give you sort of a breakdown, a run through of what that mediation session looks like. And as always, I appreciate all of the listeners. If you've got something you want Travis and I to talk about, reach out, let us know, and we'll cover it in a future episode. So remember, know your rights so you can flex your rights. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Flex Your Rights Podcast, the podcast to educate California employees so that they can flex their rights in the workplace. If you'd like to reach out to me to ask me any questions about today's episode or make a suggestion for a future episode, you can find me at attorneycorey.com. That's attorneycorey, Corey.com.